welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. Great to have you with us once again this week. I'm here with Pastor Nick Cady, who is the pastor of Whitefields Community Church here in Longmont, Colorado. And this past week, if you were not with us, we had a guest speaker, Rob Salvato, all the way from Calvary Chapel in Vista. And he shared with us from Matthew chapter 6 about anxiety, or what did Jesus have to say about worry and anxiety. Very apropos, kind of topic to be talking about, especially in our day and age, especially if you're living here in Colorado at the moment, and we're dealing with so many different things, especially wildfires. I had a Texas accent there for a second.
Where have you been, Mike?
Yeah, wildfires. Yes,
Yeah.
There we go. But if you did miss that sermon, you can get over to whitefieldschurch.com, and it should be up there. Or you can download it on any of our favorite podcast platforms. And it'd be great if you could like and subscribe anytime you download, listen to something. And on iTunes, if you were to rate and review, that's a huge help for us. It gets out the content that we're putting out, it gets it out for farther and wider, with the Apple algorithms and the Spotify algorithms and YouTube algorithms. It just gets this content out when people start to Google and search for these things, searching for answers to questions that they might have, and then our topics show up and our content shows up to answer some of those questions and maybe bring some meaning into their lives, and of course bring the gospel, Christ-centered content into their lives. And that's kind of why we do what we do. It's all about the gospel. It's all about Jesus. And so if you do that, whitefieldschurch.com or any of your favorite streaming platforms, you'll find us there. But we were looking at chapter 6 as Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat and drink," and so Rob talks a little bit about the difference between worry and anxiety, and what those kind of things. Like is it a sin to be anxious about things? When does anxiety turn into worry? When does it become all about us and forgetting the promises of God and things like that? It was very interesting dichotomy that he kind of brought up there, the difference between worry and anxiety.
Yeah, so Rob's point and what he said is that anxiety is a feeling and that worry is an action. And that's very helpful, brings a lot of clarity. Because you might wonder, okay, right now, what is the difference? Am I being anxious? Am I worrying? What am I doing? Well, he says, think about it this way. Anxiety is a feeling. Worry is an action. Worry is what you do with those feelings of anxiety. And so I always love this saying from Martin Luther, and I think it has application broadly, not just to the topic of anxiety. But here's what Martin Luther said. He said, "You can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair." And, whether that's with whatever feelings you might have, right? You can't necessarily stop a feeling. You can't stop something that comes upon you. It feels like it's a reaction, right, to something that you're experiencing. But you can stop where you go with it from there. Right? Maybe you can't stop a thought that comes into your mind, but entertaining that thought, fantasizing over that thing, obsessing over it, those are things that you can do. And Rob made one really good statement. I think he only said it in the first service. Maybe he said it in both. But he said that worry is essentially prayer in reverse. Right? You're already thinking about that thing. You're consumed with it. You're essentially praying. You're just not praying to God. And I thought that was also very helpful as far as what to do with your anxiety. In Philippians chapter 4, Paul says, "Be anxious about nothing, but in everything, with prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God, and the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So what he's saying there is that when you feel those feelings of anxiety, immediately turn those things to the Lord and turn those cares into prayers, right? It's the cliche saying, but it's so true. And, I love what it says in 1 Peter, where it says that, he says, cast your anxieties upon him because he cares for you. Now, that's really helpful because what it means is that there's no thing that is too small to turn to God with if it causes you anxiety.
Right.
This is something we talked about recently in 2 Kings, you remember, where they lost the axe head.
Right.
And for
That's
them,
right.
that was a big deal. To us, that might seem like, well, I mean, there's other bigger problems in the world. There's famines. There's the threat of nuclear war. There's, the earth could spin off its axis. We could get hit with a meteor and all die and go extinct. And yet, God cared about their situation. And their situation did cause them anxiety. There are things that cause us anxiety, and that's really helpful because let's say you're 4 years old and there's something that causes you anxiety. Well, God cares about that thing. He cares about the fact that it's causing you anxiety. And so that means that God never looks at the person who's going through something and says, wow, there's bigger problems in the world. What are you worrying about, right? So he doesn't diminish our problems, and he cares about them. That's so meaningful,
Yeah, and it just came to mind, like, to think about it, anxiety, what we should do is start that communication with the Lord. And that's what it should do, get into the habit of any time these kind of feelings come into our lives, we don't say, well, I'm anxious about this, I'm in sin. It should just take us to the Lord, communication. And I guess, you could say then worry is we're communicating with ourselves.
Right.
And we're dialoguing. And that's what a lot of people do. They start to ruminate those thoughts and things, what ifs, the what ifs, what's this, and Rob talked a lot about that, about tomorrow. What do you say, talking about, dragging the worries of tomorrow or the into today, into the present?
He said worry is like paying interest on tomorrow's problems today. Yeah.
So there was, so it's, I think that's, the biggest takeaway is that if there's anxiety to deal with, start that communication. Let that be your first communication with the Lord, and go to your knees in prayer and say, Lord, what is it, we need to do? And Lord, I need to give you these. I mean, that's what Jesus said, come to me, all you are, weak and heavy laden, I will give you rest. You've got those burdens on your shoulders. Jesus says, come to me, and I will give you rest in those moments. And, we have a Father who hears our prayers, and he wants us to communicate with him. He sees the issues we're dealing with. He wants us to talk to him about it,
One of the things I've noticed is that oftentimes these things that cause a lot of anxiety, they can go one of two ways. In some cases, you can make that choice ahead of time. Like you remember Daniel, in the book of Daniel, it says that Daniel purposed in his heart, right? That's the idea that you shingle your roof before it rains, right? So you purpose in your heart before you reach that point. And when I face something, I'm going to do this. It's preparing yourself. So I remember a time in our lives, our daughter was in the hospital, and it was something that drew my wife and I closer to each other and drew us closer to the Lord, but that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't shingled our roof before it rained, right? And so I think that's really important, that maybe you're not in a time of anxiety right now, but know these things. Shingle your roof before it rains so that when that situation does come, you'll know what to do. Because the other thing that happens is that people, these things can either tend to draw you closer to the Lord or to your loved ones and the Lord, or they can tend to cause a rift or kind of a splinter, right? Like a wedge that creates more problems over time. Well, I was going to ask you, Mike. I know we're live, so you got to think on your toes. Okay. Have you ever had a time when you were really anxious?
Oh, well, I probably, there's a few times. Most recently, probably just coming over here, the whole green card process with, Monica, that was a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of questions, a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of, it's the way they do it. It's not like it's a done deal,
They're not just handing these things
No,
out.
they
Right?
just don't know. So it's like, there was a lot of anxiety. We'd already moved here. We'd already bought a house. We'd, working a job, and she's over there. And, there was a lot of anxiety all around, that we could have shared for years on that one, But, of course, it's something you pray about. And as you said, for us, that was the calling. We were sure in that we were supposed to come here. So I think that leads into that idea of where do you put that anxiety? Well, if you go back to who you are and what you've been called to, and as a child of God, and you have a Father in heaven who loves you, then you can place, your anxieties at the foot of those promises,
So you're saying that we shouldn't just push them down, deep down inside.
No, that's not good. That ends up just exploding later.
Yeah.
So you have to have a way to get it out, and some people talk it out. Some people do, push it down. But I think, as you said, it's a spiritual discipline. It's something you should start doing and prepare yourself, because when that time does come, when there is chaos, when there's catastrophe, and it does happen, your initial reaction is going to be what you've already been training your body to do, and that's something. When I was in the military, that was it. It was all body motion, muscle memory. That's all they did. They trained you to do things over and over and over again, because when, the proverbial stuff hit the fan out there, you had to react. It wasn't like suddenly they gave you a gun and told you, hey, when the enemy comes, just shoot in the general direction.
Yeah, just shoot. You'll be fine. Right?
You'll be fine. No, they prepare you. They prepare you for the fight, and and it's no wonder that Paul used that very imagery. In Ephesians, when he's talking about armor, he used a lot of soldier imagery to talk about. He himself said, "I've fought the good fight," and it's preparation. And Paul, we see in the life of Paul that he began. His preparation for where he was in the dungeons and the things he could do to write to the Philippians from prison, and write to Timothy from prison, and write about these things and say, rejoice. Always. Again, I say rejoice. He could do that because his preparation, and his prayer and bringing those things before the Lord was already there.
What's causing me a lot of anxiety right now is that coffee cup right there.
Oh, am I going to hit it?
I've been like, and you know what I've been doing? I've been praying.
You've been praying?
I've been praying, Lord.
Well,
don't let him hit that coffee cup,
Lord. It hasn't moved.
Well,
that's a perfect segue to our update segment, which is coming up, and things that we are not worrying about but are coming in the future.
That's right. We're not worrying about. I'm excited.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
The Lord's doing a lot of great things.
Yeah, we've got all good things to talk about today. Okay, so here's our update for today. Next Gen is opening. So if you've been following our updates, this is something we've been praying for, been recruiting volunteers. The Lord has provided the volunteers. Thank you to those of you who have stepped up to volunteer. There was a training this past weekend after both services, and there will also be a training this coming Sunday after, I think, just first service.
First service, probably between services.
Yeah, between services this Sunday. So if you missed last week's training, which I'm sure some people did because it was a lot of snow, and some people braved it, but man, those roads got bad after second service. And so Next Gen is opening. Here's what you need to do. If you have kids and you want your kids to go to Next Gen class, know this. Next Gen is only starting out with one service. Eventually it's going to be both services and no restrictions, but of course we're still in the midst of a COVID pandemic. So right now there's a limited number of spots. I'm not exactly sure on the exact number, but we have a limited number of spots. So now would be a good time before you come. You got to register to get your spot, make sure. And then when you get here, there will be a check-in person who will check you in. Everything's good. So here's what you need to know. If you got kids and you want them to go to class this Sunday, which would be great, we hope that they will, it'll be kindergarten through fifth grade. So that's really two classes, K through 2 and then 3rd through 5th. And they have a certain number of kids who can attend. So go over to our website, whitefieldschurch.com, click the button to register your kids and save your spot. And then when you come, you'll go into the Commons, and there will be someone at the Next Gen table, which has a big sign that says Next Gen check-in. And they'll check your children in, and we'll be all set. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be this coming Sunday. And again, that'll open up more over time as we're allowed to and as it's safe to. Okay, the next thing we want you to know is that Project Greatest Gift, our annual outreach to children in foster and kinship care in northern Colorado, northeast Colorado, kind of Weld County, Adams County a little bit, sometimes in Boulder County. That is starting this Sunday. So every year we do it for the whole month of November. There's 5 Sundays in November this year, so there'll be 5 Sundays to participate. Here's a change though, because many of you are not coming yet in person. And we also have been asked to take more kids than we've ever been asked to take before. Turns out the needs are not going away, right? The need is perhaps getting greater.
Greater, yeah.
And so Weld County, we're so glad that God has opened this door with us, and they really see us as a partner with them in helping these families. And that's exactly what we had desired to see God do. So that's good. I think the number this year is really, really high. I mean, I'm going to do another video with Christine Apple, who's the leader of that ministry. And so stay tuned for that video. It'll be coming out on YouTube and Facebook, I think tomorrow or the next day. You'll just keep an eye out for that this week. But she'll give you all the details about how many kids we've been asked to provide for. And we want to do that. So here's what I was going to say. We're going to be switching from doing it as a primarily in-person signups to now primarily online signups. Now there will be an in-person option, right? For people who come in person, there will be a way for you to sign up at church. But there will also be a way for you to sign up if you've never been to our church before, if you live in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or something like that. And so this is an opportunity for many of you. Maybe you say, oh, well, I know people who would love to participate in this. It'd be as simple as sending them a link. And so for those of you who want to participate, there will be a way for you to do everything online this year. We've always encouraged people to go out and buy gifts. If that's not something you're comfortable doing, then this year you can just give the same amount that you would have spent, and we will help get the shopping done ourselves. Yeah. So that is starting this Sunday, and it is going to be rolled out online and in person. So excited about that. And final announcement is the Table of Hope Food Pantry, which is our food pantry here at the church, has expanded. We've had some very generous donations come in that have allowed us to do kind of what we always hoped and envisioned for this food pantry. And we have a large room that we've dedicated for it, buying fridges, buying shelving is what they did this past week. And our hope and desire is that this food will really allow us to be the hands and feet of Jesus to our community and provide for people who are in need. And this is a very appropriate time for that, with the evacuations taking place just to the west of us, and the firefighters coming in from all over the country. I think it was today, the Pacific Coast Fire Department took over the Cameron Peak fire from local people. Wow. Which is great because, they've been working nonstop. But there's people coming in, I heard, as far away as from Puerto Rico to fight these fires here in Colorado. So we're so thankful for them. We want to be a part of helping to take care of their needs and meet their needs as they've kind of stepped out of their comfort zone to come and help us. So if you would like to donate to the food pantry financially or your time, we can always use more volunteers. If you want to make food donations even, we are ready to receive those. So you can leave a comment below, or you can email us at info@whitefieldschurch.com, and we'll get you all hooked up.
All right. No, that's a lot of exciting things coming up. And so, so please, whitefieldschurch.com if you missed our sermon on Sunday, whitefieldschurch.com. If you have any questions, a lot of the things we just talked about today will be found up there. And, the sermon will be here. Subscribe over here. Ring the bell. On all the platforms. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment or review. Any of those things, they really do help. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. God bless.